Hello guys and welcome back to the Summer Day Studios YouTube channel. In today's video we're going to be taking a look at how to create another material, and as you can see on screen what we're going to be doing today is kind of a lava rock type material. Again, entirely procedurally, just with a handful of nodes. Really nothing crazy. I think this one's even simpler than the last cobblestone one that we did. Again, no UVs needed, no texture maps needed at all. This is done entirely procedurally, just with Arnold nodes and 3D textures and a few different combined nodes, a few different mix shaders. So let's get into how you can create this for yourself. Okay, so to start out with, you're going to need a light in your scene. Again, I'm just using a sky dome light with an HDRI plugged in. Feel free to use any light from the Arnold section or even the rendering section as well, just as long as you have a light in your scene so you can see what you're doing when we render this. You can create any shape as well, any particular primitive from the poly modeling shelf that you like. I'm going to go ahead and use a sphere for today. I'm just going to scale it up a bit. You don't have to do that, but it's just something I like to do. And we want to make sure that our topology is nice, even quads. So if you have a cube, go ahead and add some more subdivisions to that. With the sphere, by default, the quads are a little bit rectangular, so I'm going to increase the subdivisions to something like 32 in the axes, like this, okay? Before we go ahead and do anything as well, there's one other setting we need to change in the attribute editor. We're going to come to Arnold, Subdivision. Underneath type, we're going to set that to cat Clark, and we're just going to set the iterations to something like 4. All this is going to do is, at render time, it's going to subdivide this for us, rather than us subdividing it now. Just helps to keep things a little bit lighter, and is generally just best practice for rendering, rather than having a super dense scene. Okay, now that we have a model, let's go ahead and create our material. I'm going to hold down right click, assign new material, Arnold, and we're going to use an open PBR surface like normal. Then we're going to open up the Hypershade editor here from this little blue ball, and we're going to want to see our material, so we're going to click on it here in the top left, and then we're just going to press this button to graph it. And we've got all these different inputs, but don't worry, we'll be going over each one that we need. Don't let it intimidate you. We don't really need that many nodes to create this. So just as a good practice, I'm going to go ahead and rename this lava, or not lava material. Okay, now that we know what that is in the list, and to begin with, we're going to create the node that's going to be doing most of the work. We're going to come to the 3D textures section, and we're going to create something called a stucco. I have no idea what that means, but it kind of looks like this sort of rocky, gradienty sort of shape, kind of jazzy, very 80s at the moment in blue and red, but we don't need it to be. We're going to change the color of that actually to black and white. So we want this part to be black, and then this part to be white, okay? And essentially what this is going to do is, the white part is going to be our rocks, the black part is going to be our lava, right, the glowing bits, and we're going to use this to drive that. So to begin with, we want to actually make the alterations to the model to add these grooves and these extractions, and to do that we could just model it in, but the simplest way to do that is to use this to use displacement, or drive a displacement. So I'm just going to move this little blue guy out of the way. I'm going to press tab and type in displacement, okay? And then we can delete this. We're now going to take the displacement part here from the green, little green circle, and plug that into the displacement shader, okay? And then we're going to come back to our 3D texture section on the left, and we're going to create another material, this time a solid fractal, all right? And we're going to need one more node. We'll press tab again, and we'll create an AI mix shader, and then we'll delete this little blue node as well. So we're going to take the out color red and plug that into the displacement. We can't just take out color. We only need one individual color channel for this to work. Then we're going to take the solid fractal and take the out color for that and plug that into shader 2. Then from here, we're going to take the out color red and plug that into the mix. Again, just taking the out color red, not the whole color. It won't let us do that because we just need one color channel to essentially just feed this information that equates to black and white, or 0 and 1, just for the height. Okay, if we select our displacement shader and then open the attribute editor just so we can see that in the viewport, I've minimized the Hypershade editor, and then we're going to go to render and then Arnold, just to see what this looks like. You're probably going to get some kind of horrendous mess like this. That's because our displacement scale is too high to begin with. So I'm just going to set this to something like 0.1, right, just to begin with. And you can see now that's giving us a little bit more of what we're looking for. It could be that this is too bumpy for you. I don't want it to be this big, so I'm probably going to set it down to something like 0.05 to start off with. Maybe even a bit smaller, maybe 0.04. I don't want the height to be that much, but you can change that however you like. Come to Arnold under this tab here, and there's a few settings we can change. I like to turn off auto bump because what this means is it's going to let the displacement map add bump for us, which I don't really want it to do. I like to have that separately, so I just turn that off. And you'll notice your model gets a bit smoother there, but that's okay. Don't worry about that. And then we're also going to set the bounds padding to something a little bit lower. In this case, we're going to go to 0.02. The information for that I'm getting from this error here. Generally, Arnold will recommend one that's sufficient for you. You don't have to do this, but it's just a good practice to make sure this is dialed in. So I'm going to set that to 0.02. Okay. And Arnold should stop complaining about that. So you can see now we're kind of getting a bit more of the shape that we need from the model. We've got these extruded parts, and then we've also got these kind of valleys, which is where our lava is going to go. It's a bit hard to tell right now because it's just white. But we're going to integrate some color into this, and then you'll be able to start seeing some more of that. So let's go ahead and just turn off the render view for now. We'll come back up to viewport 2.0, and then we'll open up the Hype Shade editor again. And we're now going to use the stucco we made earlier to give us the displacement as the driving force behind emission from this material. Now, emission essentially just allows the material to emit light. If I was to go ahead and render this again, we'll put that back to Arnold, open up emission, and if I set the color to, let's say, red, just so it's nice and obvious, and then put emission up to 1000, you can see our model is starting to glow kind of a bright red. But we don't want it to glow all over. We want it to specifically glow in some areas. Okay, and that's what the stucco is going to do for us. So to begin with, we're going to create an AI color correct. And the reason for that is it's essentially going to allow us to boost the signal from the stucco. By default, the output, this plain white, is not quite bright enough. We need it to be a bit more intense. So we're going to go ahead and plug the out color of this into the input of the AI color correct. And then we're going to take the out color red and plug that into the emission luminance. And then minimize that, and you'll probably notice by default that's not doing a whole lot, but that's because, like I said, we need to boost that signal that's giving us, so we're going to go ahead and increase the exposure to 12. Okay, and you can see that's great, that's giving us the emission that we wanted, but it's putting it in the wrong places. It's putting it on the rock rather than these crevices, which are now very nicely highlighted by the emission. All we need to do is click invert, and then that will invert that, and we'll just have lava now instead. What we can do now is maybe adjust the actual color of the lava, because I don't really want it to be bright red. I think I'd rather it be more of an orange. Maybe something like this. Right, because lava comes in sort of, it has a few different shades to it, but it's more of an orangish red rather than pure red. So maybe I'll go with something like this to begin with. If you're not happy with how much lava you have on here, you can actually drive that with just one simple setting. If we open up our Hype Shade editor again and select your stucco, and then we'll just minimize this. You can literally just adjust the shaker, and then that will affect how much lava you've got. So if I was to set this down lower, you can see that this becomes just a lava ball. Sometimes your render might do this thing. It's a bug in Arnold. It's existed forever. It's really annoying, where it just continues to buffer like this. If that happens, come back up to renderer, set it to viewport 2.0, come back and hit Arnold again. But if I was to set this all the way back up to 20, or even maybe something like 31, you can see, if I just reset the render again, thanks Arnold, that we've got this much more kind of like lava rock looking thing where we've got these nice cracks going through there, and we've got these big sections of just rock as well. So depending on the shaker amount, the higher this value, the more rock you're going to get. If I set this all the way to max, you can see it's basically just all rock. If I set it all the way to 0, it's just a big lava ball. I'm going to go with something like 31 for now. So you can kind of change the appearance of the lava just with this one setting, and it updates dynamically. Which is really, really cool. It kind of just shows you the power of these nodes and the things you can create in such a short amount of time with essentially very little nodes, right? We've been doing this for 9 minutes. Last step really is to add some bump and some color. So let's go ahead and do that. We're going to create another AI mix shader, because we want the underlying color of the emission to have some orange to it, and also the rock to have some nice color to it too. So we'll plug the AI mix out color into the base color. And then for the rock, I might create a volume noise from the 3D texture node, or 3D textures section, just because instead of using a flat color, we can create a bit more visual interest. So we'll go ahead and plug the out color from that into the shader 2. And then we'll create maybe a solid fractal. Again, I like to use those for more organic looking materials. We'll plug the out color from that into shader 1. That will be our lava. And again, we need to make sure we have a mix into this sort of mix shader. Otherwise, it's just going to combine those two materials together and you won't really be able to see anything. It will just look like a blurry mess. But we want to tell Maya exactly where the noise and the fractal is going. So if we plug the stucco, the out color red, into the mix, it's going to say that in the white sections we want the volume noise, and in the black sections we want the solid fractal. The same way it's working with everything else. This stucco is essentially driving the appearance of the whole material, and then we're just plugging colors in, if you think about it that way. You might not see it straight away. Again, another bug with Arnold. We just need to update the render. And you can now see we're getting this kind of crazy looking noise texture on the rocks, which is not exactly what we want. So we're going to go ahead and change that to something a little bit more natural looking, not just like black and white polka dot. We want it to be more like a rock color. So we're going to select our volume noise, come down to color balance, and we'll change the color gain, not red, probably something a bit more rock-like, something down here, kind of a brownish reddish color. Okay, and then to change the color of those little dots, we're going to maybe set that, I think a darker color black, like that looks good. Okay, and you can see that's just adding a bit more interesting visual patterns to the rock rather than it just being all one brown color. Next, we need to do the solid fractal, but first, I think let's add some roughness to this because this rock's looking very, very shiny, which it really shouldn't do. So by default, the roughness is going to be at 0.3. I'm going to set this up to something like 0.7. Or even nearly 0.8. Right, that's looking a lot more natural. If you look at it from the backside where our light is invisible, this is looking really, really cool already. So let's go ahead and adjust the fractal. For the time being, we can maybe take the emission off, just so that we can see what that fractal is doing. You can see at the moment it's just white. Let's go ahead and select the solid fractal, come back to color balance, and then we'll set the color gain to something like, I think, a pretty vibrant red, to be honest. We might make it a little bit more orange, just as a nice undertone for that, before we go ahead and actually put the emission back in. So let's plug the out color red back into our emission luminance, come back, right? And now we just have the underlying red color and the rock color. I might quickly adjust this volume noise, actually. Can add some spottiness, some size randomness, maybe reduce the density of that a little bit. There we go. That looks a little bit more gravelly. Okay, cool. So we're not too far off. Last step really is just to add some kind of noise, really, or some kind of bump to the rest of this. And then that's pretty much done. So we're going to come back to the Hypershade editor, type in bump 2D, press tab and type in bump, then plug the out normal into the normal camera. And then what we're going to plug into here is just another solid fractal. We'll take the out color red of this, plug that into the bump value, minimize this. Okay, and if we zoom in, you can see we're now getting a nice kind of rough, coarse, rocky texture on our material. This might be a little bit too dark for my liking, actually. I think I want this to be a bit more bright colored. Bit more brighter and deeper color, maybe. And change the color offset. Something more like this. Okay, and literally that's all it takes to create a kind of lava rock looking material, and you can go ahead and play around with this to your liking, use different nodes. Again, if you want this to look more like all lava, you literally just go back to your stucco or whatever you've got driving the difference here and increase the shaker. If you want this to be more of just a rock with a few bits of lava poking through, right, like this. Or if you want it to be way more lava, you just point that back down like that, and now we've got a bit more of just a lava ball. I'm going to have it something around about like this. And yeah, that's how you create a rocky lava material entirely procedurally without UVs or texture maps in Maya. Pretty simple to set up. Let me know if you have any questions at all in the comments. Thank you very much for watching. Like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.